Harry Salem here for Salem Family Ministries, and been teaching you a little bit on leadership and about how to operate a ministry. And today we're going to talk about debt. Ooh, D-E-B-T, debt. That's a four-letter word. You know, the Bible says that we're not to be a debtor, and we're not to be in debt. We're not. You know, the thing of it is in this world that we live in right now. As I'm preparing this little segment for you, we're approaching $21 trillion in debt in the United States. Now, how can you operate and be good stewards of money if you're always borrowing? So what I want to talk to you today is about debt. Debt is a four-letter word. Debt is something that I just cannot live by, and I do not endorse to be in debt. Now, what do you mean I don't endorse it? What, do you have a mortgage on your home? There's a difference between debt and being indebted. If you have a mortgage, it's a tool. If you have a mortgage on your car, it's a tool. And the reason I say you're not indebted is because you work, and you're not working 2, 3, 4 jobs. You're not neglecting your family. You're not neglecting your church time or your lifestyle. And you know, you're indebted. You're enslaved to it. So if you work a job and you're able to pay your bills, to have a mortgage on your home is a tool. But if you can't, and you're finding yourself in your quality of life is dwindling because you're now indebted, that's not a good thing. How do you get out of debt? Well, one bill at a time. You know, the funny thing is you didn't get in debt in these huge debts overnight. It was just one bill at a time. Find yourself, if you have your bills right there, make a stack of the bills and just take one at a time and begin to pay it off. See, we look at that whole stack of bills, and I talked to a person one day. They said, I don't even want to look at them. Well, you can't ignore them. You can't put your head in the sand and say they don't exist, because they do exist. You have to address it. One of the other things I'll teach you about getting out of debt is this. You must be a tither. You tithe. You give God the 10th of your income. And we call it the first fruit offering. We give the first of the 10th. And then in that point, when you give the first 10th, it is the whole of your income. One interpretation is your tithe is the prince or the warrior. And so if it's the prince or the warrior, you give your tithe, and guess what? Everything else follows that prince or the warrior. But if you give your 10% to a bill or a debt, no wonder you continue to be in debt, because it is designed to follow that, and it follows that prince or the warrior. So be a tither. And one of the other things is to not get in debt is, you know, just because it's newer, faster, brighter, shinier doesn't mean that you need it. I always tell people, buy good once and it'll last you a long time. We live in a disposable society. Well, let's just buy something cheap and then we'll use it for a couple of years and then throw it away. But I always tell people, why don't you buy something good and it'll last you a long period of time. So buy good once. And that's how my wife and I and our family, we live our lifestyle. The other thing is, don't let someone else talk you into something that you don't need. The Bible says that I will meet your needs, but he doesn't talk about meeting your wants. Someone talks you into something that, well, don't you want this or don't you want that? The Lord really isn't concerned about your wants. He's concerned about your needs, and it says he will meet your needs. So accordingly, buy and do things according to your needs. And then the other thing is a budget. Now, what do you mean by a budget? Well, you know how much income you have coming in, and you know how much that you basically having going out. Then there are ancillary things or emergency things that come up. The first thing that I say is we structure our budget based on our hard costs, which means maybe your gas, water, electric, your house payment, insurance. Those are hard costs. And then you set aside a budget, and then you have what you call incidental things. That would be your grocery, because you don't know how much grocery money you spend each week, or your gasoline or things of that nature. And then we always have surprises. And you have to have a little bit set aside for surprises. One of the things that we like to do is we have 30% set aside for our hard costs, 30% set away for soft costs, 30% set away for our surprises, and 10% for our tithing. And you know, you'll find out that the 30, 30, 30, 10 eventually be 30, 30, and then you'll find yourself where, well, those surprises are getting down, and now you're going to be able to have money for your storehouse. And the Bible talks about a storehouse. If you're in debt, how you can have a storehouse? You can't, but you need to have a little storehouse, which is a little savings account. You know, one of the things that I teach when we do our leadership or marriage conferences is this, is that I take change, and let's say we have 300 people or 350 people at one of our gatherings, and I just asked them to take their change out of their pockets or their handbags. And when I do, and we total it up, it's amazing how much that adds up to. I remember one time it added up to about $500. Well, it's the same thing as if you throw the leftover change in your ashtray every day, and then what do we normally do? When that change builds up, we go into a coffee shop or we'll get a sandwich or something. But if you take that change, and the Bible says, if you're faithful over little, he'll give you much. You take that little change and you put it away and you begin to store it. If there was 350 people at that meeting, we had $500. Think about that. If you took that change every day, 365 days a year, and you put it aside, see if you don't have $500. And then you keep that and you add it up over the course of 18 years. Now you're talking $9,000. Well, when people say I can't afford to send my children to school, well, there's $9,000 because you just saw that as disposable and discarded money. Be a penny saved is a penny wise. So those are just a little nuggets on getting out of debt. I'll tell you more about it in the next time that we come up and talk to you. But those are little nuggets. Don't create the beast, you can't feed the beast. In other words, don't overspend. Don't buy something just because someone says, well, you need it, or here's, bigger, brighter, shinier. No, do you really need it? So Harry and Cheryl, Salem Family Ministries, thank you for tuning in today. And I hope you like us. Do the little thumbs up. Go to our website. See if we're in an area near you. We'll see you next time.